Hey guys, it's Stevie from On the Fly. And if you're looking for a vinyl experience, let me tell you about Everybody's Record Shop in Williamson, North Carolina. I just went in a couple of weeks ago, and let me tell you, I was so impressed. Let me tell you a little bit about this place. Everybody's Record Shop is the place to catch your music fix. They are a local family owned record store based in downtown Williamson, and they specialize in the sale and trade of vinyl records, tapes, CDs, and much more. When you come to them, they want you to feel like you just stepped back in time to the glory days of music. Walking through the front door, you'll be greeted with a surplus of rock, blues, country, classical, soul, anything you can think of. They've got it. Everyone you'll see behind the counter has a deep passion and love for music, and through their shop, they want to help create memories and experiences that you won't forget. Music has the incredible power to bring together different people from all around under a common love. Their goal is to do the same through customer experience and the music they provide. This place is for the music lovers. And I'm telling you guys, if there is something they don't have, let them know. They will order it for you. Go check them out at at 101 West Main Street, Unit B, or you can reach them on the phone at 252-802-8069, on Instagram at Everybody's Record Shop, or on Facebook at Everybody's Record Shop as well.
Hey, this is Warren from Taming Sorry, and you're listening to On the Fly with Stevie and Jason.
You are listening to On the Fly.
What's up, guys? On the Fly is back, and tonight we are honored to have with us one of the legendary members of the legendary band, the Plasmatics. I'm talking about a guy that played lead guitar, played some keyboards for him with Wendy O. Williams. Talking about none other than Mr. Wes Beech. How you doing, Mr. Beech?
I'm doing great, Steve. How's everything?
Everything is good. You know, we've had, I don't know about, where are you at now?
I'm in the Detroit suburbs.
Did y'all get any bad weather earlier this week?
I'm a little snow. It's cold. It's going to be turning colder. We're supposed to get a little more snow tomorrow, Saturday. So it's winter. It's Michigan.
Yeah, we had some really bad winds Tuesday night. As a matter of fact, I was surprised we didn't have a power outage, but no snow yet. They're talking about that next week for us here in North Carolina. So, in North Carolina, it's a little different when we get snow. When we get 2 inches of snow in North Carolina, it paralyzes us. Where y'all probably laugh at 2 inches of snow.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about West Beech. Growing up, what got you into music? Who were you listening to as a kid that really made you think, this is who I want to listen to?
Well, I think like probably thousands or maybe even millions of my generations. I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Right.
And that did it for me. I mean, just seeing the reaction, the girls screaming at them and going wild. It's like, okay, this is something I'd like to do. So I started off playing saxophone in school. I played saxophone all through elementary school, through high school, through college. And my first bands I played saxophone in, but sax guy was kind of in the back. I didn't get any girls, and I wanted to play guitar, so I switched to guitar, and my life changed.
Yeah, I wish at an early age I would have picked up the guitar, and I've got my daughter a couple of years ago. She decided she wanted to learn how to play, so we got guitars at the same time, and she's got a lot more free time than I do on my hands. So mine is sitting over here. It's been tuned, but I hadn't done anything with it. But she's gotten pretty good at it so far. But I wish at an early age I would have started doing that. So what you talked about, you wanted to get the girls, you wanted to get to the front of the stage with the guitar. First band you were in, what was the first band that you remember being in?
Well, the first band, actually, I went to a party at a friend of my parents' daughters was having a graduation party, and I met a couple guys there. And it was actually a Grateful Dead cover band. The
Oh,
singer
wow.
looked like Jerry Garcia, sounded like Jerry Garcia, and I played saxophone in the band, so it was a little
Right.
different. But it was
Well,
pretty cool. But we were terrible. I mean, we were so bad that we had a gig playing a block party in my town, and we were so bad the drummer refused to play with us, so we had to get another drummer, kind of like a fill-in drummer, a guy I played in the high school band with. He came down and played, but yeah, we were pretty bad. But it
so
was fun. It was a lot of fun.
so how do you end up with the Plasmatics and Wendy O. Williams?
Well, I was in another band called The Accidents, and we used to play the CBGB's Max's Kansas City circuit. And we toiled around that for a while. We never really got anywhere, kept at it. And the band started to break up, and everybody was going their separate ways. So, like many musicians in New York, I answered an ad in the Village Voice, was looking for the world's fastest rhythm guitar player. And that was right up my alley. So I answered the ad, and I went down to audition and show up at this space in Lower Manhattan. And it was in the basement of this building. It was really dark and dank, and water was dripping from the pipes, and it was filled with all these kind of strange people and musicians. So as I sat in the waiting area, kind of waiting for my turn to play, I heard them kept playing the same songs over and over. So I figured out the chords to that song, and then when they invited me in to do my audition, they said, "Here, let us show you this song." I said, "Oh, I know it already." So I played it, and they were impressed with how quick I picked it up. Then we ran through a couple more songs, and then they said they liked me and invited me back for another audition. And then I ended up going back 2 more times, and finally they said, "Well, we like you. We think you're really good, and you'd be good for us, but you have a little bit of a weight problem." So I said, "Okay." And I went on a crash diet, subsisting on nothing but black coffee and avocados and cottage cheese for 3
Oh,
weeks.
wow.
And I ended up losing almost 30 pounds.
In a week?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I mean, it was a crash diet. That's all I subsided on.
So
So
what
then,
was
I went back and they took me in. And when I auditioned, Wendy wasn't there. It was just the band.
right? What was your first initial reaction meeting Wendy?
Well, it's kind of a funny thing. In my band, The Accidents, we were rehearsing one night, and we got done rehearsing in a loft space in Lower Manhattan. And as we were leaving, somebody was coming out of one of the other lofts, and it was a guy I recognized from my high school, and his band was rehearsing. And he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, you want to go down to CBGB's? My aunt's boyfriend's band is playing their kind of their first night there, and they want some people there. You want to go check them out?" And I says, "Okay, I'll go down there." So I went down there, and it was the Plasmatics playing. And I thought they were just terrible, but I thought Wendy was absolutely riveting. She was in a one-piece leopard print jumpsuit, and she just commanded the stage. She looked fantastic. I thought she was great. So fast forwarded a few months, and there was an ad in the Village Voice looking for the fastest rhythm guitar player, and I didn't know who the band was. They didn't mention it. And then when I showed up, found out it was the Plasmatics. I thought, okay, we'll see how this goes. So the first time, after I auditioned, went back 3 times, and they took me into the band. We're going down. The first time I was going to play with them officially was in their loft space in Lower Manhattan that manager Rod Swenson and Wendy lived in. So when I went up there for the first time, I go into the loft, and this is this 5th floor walk up, Lower Manhattan. Get up there, and right in the middle of the kitchen, there's a bathtub, and right in the bathtub is Wendy. And I walk in there, she looks up at me, and she goes, "Oh, you must be Wes, the new guitar player. Hi, I'm Wendy." And I'm like, okay, this is going to be some ride, and it sure was.
Definitely was a big ride with her, because I mean, you talk about, and we talked a little bit about before we went on the air. As a kid, I always bugged my mom every time we went to a place that had magazines. It can, Circus Magazine, Hit Parader Magazine. That was the main 2 that we had around here. And seeing the Wendy O. Williams and the Plasmatics for the first time in Circus Magazine, and they were talking about the shock rock and some of the things she was doing. I was a big Kiss fan since I was 5 years old. I knew they did some shock rock stuff with the Spit and Blood, but Wendy kind of carried it to an extreme. With there was blowing up cars, a saw with a chainsaw with a guitar, stuff like that. But uh, t- backstage, I mean, I'm sure that was that for more for play, or was that how Wendy was?
No, that's the way Wendy was. She liked to push everything to this extreme, to take everything to the limit. Her motto was, let's draw a line in the sand and then I'll step over that line. And she did every chance she got. But she was a great, she was a great person. She was like an older sister to me. She really pushed us, and we would rehearse all the time. And she would push us to get the most out of us, and she would really work on her craft constantly. She would jog like 6 miles a day all the time with the Walkman on her head, listening to the songs, practicing the songs, working on them.
So she was a pro.
She was a pro, yeah.
What kind of reactions were you getting? Like when I know you guys played the Palladium, and you guys were the first band to charge full ticket prices without a major record contract. So obviously you were getting good reaction from the crowd. But what were the record companies telling you guys as far as getting a record deal?
Well, we were such a threatening band. It was hard for record companies to really latch onto us because
Right.
they found us threatening. We were anti-establishment. We went against the grain of everything, and radio stations, record companies, they were all threatened by us.
Yeah, definitely. Talk a little bit about Rod Swinson. What was it like working with Rod Swinson?
Well, Rod Swinson was, the mastermind of the band, and him and Wendy were together. And he discovered Wendy, and she wanted to be a singer in the band. So he promoted her, and he propped her up, and everything he did for the band was revolved around her. And Rod was a graduate of Yale University, and he was a conceptual art major. So the Plasmatics were really a conceptual art project, and that's the way he treated the band, and that's the way we really were. We were Rod Swinson's vision. And it was a vision unlike anything else that was out there at the time. And I don't think there'll ever be another band like the Plasmatics.
No, definitely not. You guys played we talked about the Palladium, the ill-fated Hammersmith concert that never took place. What was that whole atmosphere like there?
Oh, that was crazy. We were signed at the time to Stiff Records, and they flew us over to England to headline the Hammersmith Odeon. So there was a lot of press, a lot of publicity surrounding the show. We went there a couple weeks before the show and went into some heavy rehearsals. We rehearsed at Shepperton Studios in the Who's rehearsal space. And we had all top-notch equipment, and we had the best sound system, the best lighting and everything. And the idea was we'd blow up a car on stage like we did countless times across the country. And then Wendy would do her chainsaw. So before the show, the Greater London Council came in, and they wanted to see exactly what was going on. So our pyro guy took them out for a test out in a field out in England, and blew up the car. So the Greater London Council said, oh, no, you can't blow up a car. There's no way that's happening. So Rod said, well, let's compromise. How about we just put some small charges in the car? We'll just knock the doors off from the inside, make it look like we're blowing up a car when we're not really blowing it up. And they said, no, that's not going to happen. So then he said, we're going to do the chainsaw. And they said, no, you're not going to do the chainsaw. And he said, well, why? So they were afraid that the chainsaw would break and the chain would fly into the crowd and somebody in the crowd would get injured. Now, again, this is something that Wendy did at every show we ever did, and there was never a problem. The chainsaws were always well maintained and oiled and in top condition, so there was little or no chance of that happening at all. But they said no. They put the kibosh on that. So then Rod countered with, okay, how about this? How about if we take the audience and put the whole crowd up in the balcony? Then nobody could get hurt if something happens with the chainsaw. But the Greater London Council says, no, that's not going to happen. You can't use the chainsaw. You can't blow up the car. And, Rod stood his ground. He says, well, that's part of the act. That's what the Plasmatics do. That's what we're about. So the show was canceled at the last hour, even though it was sold out. And it was very disappointing for all of us. And the
What
next day they had press conferences, and we were talking to the press about it, and it was kind of sad, because we put a lot into it, and we were all ready to go, and they canceled it right at the last minute.
was there any kind of on stage act that she had talked about doing that never made it on stage?
Well, there was a lot of things we talked about doing that never made it. At one time, we used to get these chickens from a slaughterhouse, and Wendy would put them up in cages on the ceiling at CBGB's and other clubs we played. And for the climax, the end of the show, she'd take the shotgun, shoot at the ceiling, and they'd open up the cages and let the chickens out. And the chickens would be running all over the stage, running wild, and roadies would be chasing the chickens down. It was quite a spectacle. So this went on for a while, and then Wendy was thinking about maybe we should do goats on stage and pigs and let them out, let them run around. But we never did that. And then Wendy was always talking about maybe getting a dirigible and climbing up that and having that fly across a big arena, but that never happened. So there was a few things, but many things she actually did that most people would never do, and certainly never think about doing now.
And then you play at the Pier 62, and you actually do that's one of the places where you blew up the car at. I'm just reading about it. A free concert at New York City's Pier 62. Loaded the car up with explosives, jumping out moments before the car would hit the stage, blowing up all the equipment. How hard, you talked about getting canceled in London, but how hard was it when you went to these places and blew up the car to get permits and stuff like that to be able to do this kind of thing?
Well, there was a lot of sleight and hand involved between our stage manager and Rod and the fire marshals and the club owners. A lot of times our road manager, George Pearson, would take the fire marshal and the club owners out for dinner, and he'd tell them that it's just it's like a magic act, it's just an illusion. They're not really blowing anything up. When in fact we were blowing things up, and we were doing it by the seat of our pants. There was really no handbook telling us how to do it. Our pyro guy kind of figured out how to do it on his own.
Did you guys ever get any of the crowd like outside protesting the concerts or anything like that, or was it pretty much a tame crowd? A supportive crowd?
Oh, a lot of times there'd be a lot of protests and things. There was one show we did in New Hope, Pennsylvania, where the local townspeople came out and protested in full force in front of the club, and they were marching in front of it, and they had signs, and they had the preachers out there saying how evil we were and to not go into the concert. But the kids still went in, and that happened a bit. And there was also a lot of that going on when we toured with Kiss, because there was a lot of evangelists out there kind of promoting themselves and using that as a soapbox, saying Kiss was satanic.
I do remember, and you bring that up, opening for Kiss on that Creatures tour. And that was about the time, like you said, the evangelists were coming out. And, we all heard the whole Knights in Satan service is what Kiss stands for. Gene Simmons is a demon, and they worship the devil and all this stuff. I listened to Kiss when I was from the time I was 5 years old to now. I don't see any horns on my head coming out of my head or anything like that. I think I'm pretty well balanced. But what was it like? Because Kiss was kind of in a struggle at that time. You got a new guitar player. Their tour isn't going so well. But what was it like opening up for a band like Kiss on that Creatures of the Night tour?
Well, it was pretty wild. The whole thing about it was they had us open for them to help sell tickets because it was such a poor tour.
Yeah.
In fact, we replaced Night Ranger because I guess they weren't filling the seats, and we were good for at least 1,000 seats a night. So that's why they had us on the tour. But in many cities, we were getting better reviews than them. In fact, there were some headlines saying, hot new band, Plasmatics, tired old Kiss, things like that. And in almost every city, there were these evangelists in there trying to say that Kiss were satanic and supporting Satan and don't go in and it was evil and all this crazy stuff. And really, they were just promoting themselves, and nothing could be further from the truth. Kiss was a rock band. That's what they were all about. They had nothing to do with Satan or Satan worship, which was kind of ludicrous. And one time, I remember we were in Gulfport, Mississippi, opening for them, and we're sitting there in a restaurant, and this evangelist comes over to our table, starts talking about the concert and Kiss and how evil they were and everything. And it's like, hey, does this guy know who we are? And when we were opening for Kiss, Wendy would come out and roll a pentagram on stage. So the whole thing was just ridiculous.
I mean, that would be like, saying, what's the girl? Was it Linda Blair that played in The Exorcist, saying she was the devil? I mean, it's
right.
It's an act they play. And as a kid now, let me tell you, as a kid, I was full into these guys were the real deal. They were exactly who they were, but it didn't bother me a bit. How'd you get along with the guys in the band with Kiss?
Well, Paul and Gene kind of, acted like they were above everybody else. In fact, they were probably the only rock stars I've ever met that really acted like rock stars and acted like they were above everybody. But Vinny was really cool. Eric was really cool. He was a lot of fun. He was always laughing, joking around. Kind of nice to hang out with.
Now, Eric is probably my favorite member of Kiss, and God rest his soul. We just did a show a couple weeks ago with a lady named Janet Simmons that just wrote a book called Rise of the Fox, which puts a lot of stuff out there about Eric. It fills a lot of holes about Eric. You got any funny Eric Carr stories from that tour?
Well, I don't know so much from the tour, but when we were recording the Wow album in the studio, he was always joking around and having fun. And at that time, he had like this little phone pager, and we're out there getting ready to do backup vocals, checking the microphone. He took this phone pager out and he just kind of waved it in front of the microphone and make this high pitched sound. And Gene's in the control room and he's looking up like, what's going on in there? Something wrong with the mic. And you can see him in there talking to the engineers. And then Eric would whip out this pager in front of the microphone. It would start squealing again, and Gene would be losing his mind. And then finally, Eric just held it up and started laughing, and Gene laughed at it. He got a little kick out of it.
So before we get into the Wow album, there was another. Well, you actually went on the show, which was supposed to be the ABC's alternative to Saturday Night Live, called Fridays. How did that come about, and what kind of atmosphere was it there with you guys? Did they tell you, okay, there's certain things you can't do on this show, or did Wendy try to push the issue a little bit and try to do some of the stuff she did on stage?
Oh yes, she definitely pushed the envelope there. The bra she was wearing was cut out, and she actually just put black on her breasts, so it looked like she was wearing something, but she actually wasn't. And that was pretty wild, that show. That was, Michael Richards was on that show.
Yeah,
Larry David was on that show. So there was a lot of people before they were famous on there.
Yeah,
but we really pushed the envelope on that show.
Being on a major network on a show like that, I can imagine she was like, okay, this is going to get some attention here. I'm gonna really push it here. I can't blame her. Another former member of the Plasmatics, John Boviar. What was it like working with him?
Well, he was really cool. We brought him into the band to boost the bass section. The original bassist, Chosei Funahara, was struggling a little bit with the bass, so we decided to bring in somebody to further strengthen the bottom end and play tighter with drummer Stu Deutsch. So we auditioned quite a few bass players, and in the end, John stood out. We liked him, and it gave us kind of like a different look, having a black bass player in the band
with the mohawk.
Right. He had the mohawk, and he replaced Chosei Funahara, who was a Japanese bass player. So it kind of gave us that mixed flair in the band, which we always like to support. And he took
Okay.
it kind of to the next level. So he brought a different level of musicianship into the band. He also played keyboards, and he was a
So
good musician, but I don't know if he ever really had the same kind of attitude as we did as far as the punk rock kind of music.
right, I got you. So let's talk about this Wow album, how this comes about. There's a story. Uh, you guys opened for Kiss. Uh, your recording contract with Capitol Records was not renewed, and uh, did Gene come up with the idea about you guys recording the album, helping you guys record this album?
Well, it was Gene's idea. He wanted to do a Wendy album. He didn't want to do a Plasmatics album, and in fact, he didn't want to use any of the Plasmatics on the record. And
Oh,
Wendy
really?
yes, and Wendy fought for us to be on the record, so that's how we stayed on. And what had been happening is we had been working on material for the next Plasmatics album when we got the call to open up for Kiss. So we did about 2 weeks opening for Kiss, and then we left the tour, went back to New York, ostensibly to work on material for the next Plasmatics record. So a couple days passed, and Kiss was desperate. They called us back and begged us to come back and open for them, so for some more shows. So we said okay, and we went back out, opened for them for another couple weeks, and then went back to New York. And when the tour was over, Gene wanted to, like I said, produce a Wendy solo album. So he came down and in pre-production, and he brought some songs in for us to work on, and we worked on some of the songs we had for the next Plasmatics record. And the idea was that Richie Stotts was going to play some lead guitar on it, and I would do the rhythm. T.C. Tolliver, the drummer, would play, and Chris Romanelli would play bass. So Gene worked with us on some songs for a while, for about 2 weeks in pre-production. And right before he went into the studio, our bass player, Chris Romanelli, had a falling out with manager Rod Swenson, and he abruptly quit the band. So when he stormed out one night, we were all kind of in shock that, here's Chris leaving the band right before we're headed into the recording studio. And I remember Gene Simmons was in Rod Swenson's office, and Gene looked at Rod, looked at us, and he goes, well, that's okay. We weren't going to use him anyway. And that was kind of, Gene's approach to the album. He was going to bring in all these people. So we went in for pre-production, and it was just me playing rhythm guitar and T.C. Tolliver playing drums. And that was what was the foundation of the rhythm section. So we did that, and then the idea was we was going to bring in Richie Stotts to play guitar solo. And the day of his solo, he came in, and Richie was kind of a nervous, high-strung guy anyway. So when he came in, Gene just made him feel really uncomfortable because he had these other guitar players sitting in the lobby, and he said, well, these guys are waiting to try out some solos too. So Richie went in there, and, his lead playing, it was not what Gene was after. Gene was looking for something more polished, and Richie was, more frenetic and frantic and kind of his own style, which, fit some of our songs, of course, but Richie was such a mess when he left, and Gene says, well, I don't like any of the things you played. I don't like any of your solos, but it's okay. We'll get somebody else to play on the record, and then you'll get the credit, and then you'll be in the band on the record. But, Richie didn't want to do that, and he quit the band as a result.
Wow. So is it true Gene is actually the Reginald Van Hilsen who's credited on the album?
Oh, yes. Yep. That's Gene all the way. In fact, when we were doing the tracks, he put a bass in my hand. He says, hey, you want to play bass on this album? And I was like, I got my hands full playing guitar. What are you talking about? So Gene played bass on it. I thought he played really good bass on it, in fact.
Yeah. So Ace played on Bump and Grind, right? Did he record? Did he come in and record?
Yeah, he came in to record. He did Bump and Grind. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the studio that day, and from what I understand, he did a number of passes on it, and it was the first take that they kept.
Oh, wow. I was wondering because at that time, I guess the Ace was kind of in the middle of leaving the band. So and Vinny actually co-wrote "Ain't None of Your Business." Paul Stanley plays on "Ready to Rock," and then Eric plays on "Legends Never Die."
Right. Mm-hmm.
And listening to these songs, I mean, as a Kiss fan, Kiss fans will recognize two songs on that album. "It's My Life," which is, I think, I don't understand on Psycho Circus why that was not on that album. That could have been a killer track. You guys do a great job with that. It could have been a great Kiss song too. I don't know what your feelings about "It's My Life" is.
Right. Nobody understands why Kiss never used that song. I thought it was a great song, and I went through a lot of hell with Gene on that song. That was my guitar solo. I wrote that solo for that song, and at the time, I had a little cassette recorder, and I would practice, the solo on that, and I'd record it on the cassette recorder. I'd record the rhythm part on one cassette recorder, and then I'd use another cassette recorder and record the solo on it. So I'd bring that tape down to Gene to listen to it. I said, Gene, here's the solo I got for "It's My Life. What do you think?" And I played it, and he just looks at me and he goes, "I don't hear anything. I don't hear any solo." I said, "What are you talking about? Here, it's right on this cassette." He goes, "I don't hear that." And he just kind of gave me a hard time a lot on that recording. But I kind of channeled the 70s Alice Cooper band for that solo, and I thought it came out really good, and they still use that solo to this day.
Yeah, and that's the same. Listen to it. I was like, this is the same solo they use on the demo version for Psycho Circus, the one that I guess it got released on one of the box sets. Which, like I said, there's a lot of things Kiss has done that I question why they didn't use some of this stuff. But this song right here is a great deep cut right here. And you guys, like I said, you guys do a great job. Wendy has such a distinctive voice, though. It's one of those voices that, there's few voices that you can hear and say, that's definitely so and so. Elvis is one, and Wendy's voice is definitely somebody you can tell it's Wendy. Talk about the lead off song. I love "Sex and Rock and Roll." Yeah, you got the co-write on that with Gene, Rod Swinson, T.C. Tolliver, Richie Stotts. What was it like working on that song?
Well, that was a song, of course, that was originally slated for that Plasmatics record. And when Gene came down, he liked it. And we kind of made it a little more Spartan. He made it a little more empty sounding. I really liked the way it turned out. Gene wrote that kind of Led Zeppelin-ish ending to it.
Right.
And breakdown at the end. And that was a really cool song. I thought that came out good on the album.
So you got another song up here from it appears later on the Crazy Nights album, Crazy Nights album, excuse me. "Thief in the Night," which was Gene and Mitch Weissman writing. And Wendy does a great job of that. A little different than the Crazy Nights version, but it's still a great song. "Thief in the Night." What was it like with "Thief in the Night"?
Oh, I always love playing that song, and I love playing it live. And that's another case of it's a real kind of empty song. There's just not a lot there. There's heavy drums, and I think the drums he got on the Wow album sound better than the ones on Crazy Nights.
Right.
And that was a really, really cool song to play. I always enjoy playing it live. And that little kind of guitar fill that is in there. Gene came up with that, and that really brings the song out, I think.
Yeah. What about Opus and CM7? That one was something that I was kind of surprised here because it's kind of a slower. It's I guess the closest thing to a ballad you guys will do. What was it like with Opus and CM7?
Well, that was a song that bass player Chris Romanelli wrote and brought to the band. And it was kind of like a ballad type song. It was a chance for Wendy to actually sing and emote, and a really powerful song, I think.
Yeah, at this time, with there's a lot of the power ballad is starting to make a big hit on the charts. With a lot of rock bands are starting out doing the power ballad. So I guess this was the Plasmatics power ballad here.
Right.
And then to Legends Never Die, which Gene Simmons and Adam Mitchell and Mickey Free on there. And then leading at the end, you got Ain't None of Your Business that Gene, Eric, and Vinny wrote. What was that like with Ain't None of Your Business?
Well, that was a good, straightforward rocker. That was also a lot of fun to play. And again, on that album, we left a lot of spaces, for the guitar and for the vocals, and it was just a heavy record. And in fact, it's kind of funny that we were in the control room with Gene listening to a playback. I think it was on Ready to Rock. It's a real big drum sound. Eric Carr was in there with us, and Eric looks up at Gene. He goes, "Hey, Eric." He says, "Hey, Gene, how come my drums didn't sound like that?" And they had just finished doing "Lick It Up." And Gene didn't answer him. He just didn't answer him. He just stayed focused, looking at the control board.
That version of the band with when Vinny came along, when after Creatures, when Lick It Up came out. As a kid, I lived in a very small town. We didn't have MTV or anything like that. So when I go to the record store, I have heard nothing about Ace Frehley being out of the band. And I look up and I'm thinking Vinny is Ace Frehley. And I'm like, wow, he looks totally different than what I thought he would. But I mean, I was a little behind on that.
Well, that was a lot of that tour. They teased that Ace was going to be coming back.
Oh yeah,
to help sell tickets. And I had the silver hair, so I'd be backstage or I'd be at clubs and stuff, and people would come up to me and they'd be like, "Hey, Ace, are you playing tonight?" And I'd be like, "I'm not Ace." Like, "No, Ace, come on, man. What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm not Ace." And they're like, "Oh, I know you're Ace. You just can't say you are." I said, "Okay, no, I'm not Ace."
There's a lot of talk about how Vinny is now, but what was it like? You talked a little bit about it earlier. What was it like working with Vinny?
Well, Vinny was never in the studio when we were working on the Wow album.
Right.
So my only interactions with him was on the Creatures tour. But I thought Vinny was great. And for my money, I think that was the best lineup Kiss ever had. I mean, Vinny was a great vocalist. Eric was a great vocalist. Vinny played great rhythm guitar as well as, shredding lead guitar. And I know he didn't get along much with Paul and Gene, but to me, that was the best version of the band.
Yeah, I could see that. So talk about what you do after the Plasmatics, what you're up to now, life after the Plasmatics.
Well, I'm still writing songs. I just did a track for a guy named Bloody Mess, song called Wax Fruit, kind of a pop punk social commentary. You can search on YouTube. If you search Bloody Mess Wax Fruit, you can listen to it.
Yeah, I'm writing that down now, and we'll definitely check that out.
It just came out on CD, and it's going to be coming out on a limited edition album. And I played on that with T.C. Tolliver playing drums. First time we recorded together since the Coup d'Etat album.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So we're planning on possibly doing some more recording, maybe do some Plasmatic songs, some more original songs.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll see some of that moving forward. But I keep active. I keep writing a lot of songs, still playing guitar, keeping the fingers going.
So, of course, we all know about Wendy's passing and how that was. How did that affect you when Wendy passed?
No, that was totally devastating. I mean, I really didn't see it coming. I had spoken to her maybe a couple months earlier, and I'd seen her not too much before that. I would go and visit her and Rod in Connecticut frequently when I'd have vacations and things. And we would talk about, maybe writing some songs and doing some things again in the future. But Rod was involved in some other academic things and just seemed to be kept on the back burner, never really came to fruition. And then I'll never forget, I was working in a music store at the time, and Rod called me and told me about Wendy. He said he wanted to tell me before it hit the news wires, and I was just totally shocked and devastated. It was really one of the saddest days of my life, and I still miss her. I mean, she was a great person, real kind, and like I said, she was almost like an older sister. She would watch out for us when we were on the road, make sure we got the things we were supposed to get on the rider, make sure we ate well. And she would always push us in rehearsals and things as well. We rehearsed all the time. Our rehearsal schedule was very rigorous. We'd rehearse every other day, all day Saturday and Sunday. And typically would go in, work on some new material. And then Wendy would come in and would go through the set just as if we were playing it live in a club at the same intensity level. And would finish the last note, and we'd be looking at each other, dripping in sweat, panting. Wendy would turn around, look at us, and go, "All right, guys, let's do it again." And you couldn't say no to Wendy.
That's a typical practice make perfect. I'm a football coach, and I always tell my guys, you practice the way you play in a game. That way to do it. I guess that was her way of getting y'all to practice the way you play. So evidently she thought a lot of you guys, and she was very loyal to guys to stand up to Gene Simmons when he wants to do an album with her, and she wants you guys on there, not just some session players or some guys he's going to bring in. So evidently, she really thought a lot of you guys.
Right. Yep. She really did. We were all, we were like a family.
Yeah.
We travel across the country together, and we went through a lot of things together.
So where can people talk about where people can find you, or what, if you got anything to plug right now, talk about where people can find you online, or where your social media or whatever.
Well, Plasmatics.com. I'm an administrator on the website, and our back catalog is available there. All the CDs, some vinyl, posters, some T-shirts. You can go there. I'm active on Twitter, Beech Wesley on Twitter. Like I said, the Bloody Mess Wax Fruit. You can hear my latest recording. I also gave him a song to play. I didn't play on it, but he did a song called Rock and Roll Scallywag, which was actually a song from my pre-Plasmatics band. And he put some new words to it, and that came out really well. And in fact, the song Monkey Suit is a song I brought from my band, The Accidents, into the Plasmatics.
So, and that's something that fascinates me too, Mr. Beech. The songwriting, as I did lyrics to one song, and that was a song for my wife for our 20th anniversary. And a friend of mine, he was a recording artist, and he did me a favor, recorded the song. That was an anniversary present, and he was like, "Dude, if you could write 10 of these," and it was more of a country music flavor of it. He said, "If you could write me 10 like that, that would be a great country music album." And I was like, "Oh God, this is going to be my calling right here. I can write a song like that." Yeah, that one came out in like 20 minutes. I've yet to be able to write another one like that. And so you guys, the fact that you can write these songs like you do, I have nothing but the utmost respect for it. What kind of process do you go through when you write a song?
Well, it's kind of a craft, and inspiration hits at the weirdest times. I mean, I sometimes come up with lyrics when I'm out early in the morning walking the dog, and I'll come in, sit down, pick up the guitar, and the chords just come right to you. And usually I can tell within like the first 10 minutes of picking up a guitar if I'm going to have something that's worthwhile and something worth working on. And when we were in the band, we'd bring songs to the band all the time. And we had, before that Wow album, what was going to be the Plasmatics album, we probably had 70 some odd songs that we had ready to go, because we were always constantly writing songs and bringing them to the band. And sometimes, would work on them and flesh them out. Other times, okay, this isn't working out. So it was just, then the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
So I'm looking at the website and the vinyl on here, because I've turned into kind of a vinyl geek up here. How hard is it for you guys now to get that vinyl? I know vinyl is getting kind of expensive now. How hard is it to get this vinyl in for you guys? Because I see there's some of them that is still in stock, and there's some that's back ordered and out of stock now.
Right. So it's hard to do, especially when COVID hit. It got really hard.
Yeah.
Record companies were backed up for months.
And you got, guys, I'm telling you, if you're a fan of the Plasmatics, you guys like. There's a vinyl up here for $13.99. These are not bad prices for vinyl right now. So I was shocked to see that. But all right, before I let you go, we talked about this before we came on there. It's time for the 2-minute drill. So clear your head.
All right.
Some quick hitting questions. Like I said, no answer is wrong.
All right, bring it on.
First album you bought?
Swan Lake by Tchaikovsky.
Okay. First concert you went to?
Jay Giles in Central Park.
You rather go to the lake or the beach?
The beach. My name is Beach. What do you think?
Yep. Coke or Pepsi?
It varies. It depends. I can go with either one. Right now, it's Pepsi.
I got you. Favorite movie?
That's a tough one. There's so many good ones out there. Of all time,
if you got a couple of them, that's fine.
One of my favorite movies of all time is the 30s version of Alice in Wonderland.
Oh wow. Okay.
I mean, it's surreal and it's way out there.
See, I've never seen that, so that's something I'll have to go back and look.
Check it out. And then there's a 50s version. It's really good as well. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Alice in Wonderland, so
okay.
But that's really good. And then I just recently saw a movie called Poor Things, which is really wild.
Poor Things?
Poor Things.
Okay.
And that I would recommend. It's out there. It borders on softcore porn, but it's the actress Emma Stone just won a Golden Globe for her performance in it. So
I did, okay, because we were actually, my daughter was watching the Golden Globes the other night, and I saw where she got. Okay, I'll have to check that out. Pineapple on pizza?
What's that? Oh, pineapple on pizza? Rarely.
Rare. Okay. Favorite dessert?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Okay. Favorite TV show?
Seinfeld.
Okay. If you could go back in time to any music event in history and be there, what would it be?
The Beatles at Shea Stadium.
I figured you would say that. Okay. If you could go back in time and record with any artist, if you could record with any artist that's past or still living, who would it be?
Mick Ronson or Johnny Thunders.
Okay. All right. And last, this is going to be a tough one probably. Favorite song?
I Only Want to Be With You by Dusty Springfield.
Wow. Okay. A lot of people don't, do you remember, because as a kid, my musical taste was Kiss and a few others. You remember a group that came from, was it Scotland? The Bay City Rollers.
Oh, I love the Bay City Rollers.
I love the Bay. They did a cover of that. Every time I hear.
Right. Oh yeah, I love their cover as well. Yeah, I have so many versions of that song, you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, and I've still got my Bay City Rollers vinyl in there because I was.
Oh, so do I. In fact, my band, The Accidents, we used to do the Bay City Rollers song, "Wouldn't You Like It?"
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And our singer was a big fan of the Bay City Rollers.
Yeah, I was a huge fan. I remember when they did the little Saturday morning show, the Sid, which I think they hated doing that, but it got them on there. That Sid and Marty Krofft variety show. But I used to tune in every Saturday morning. So Kiss and the Bay City Rollers that were my musical influence back then.
Yeah. I love the Rollers.
The early '80s was when I started expanding a little bit to more rock and stuff like that. But Mr. Beech.
That's funny. It's funny you mentioned the Bay City Rollers because my friend Bloody Mess, whose CD came out, he recorded a song with the son of Alan Longmuir.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because Alan passed away a few years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I didn't know Alan's son was playing. What does he play?
He's a singer.
Oh, he's a singer. Okay, I'm gonna have to look for him then. Because I actually did a early on when I was doing the podcast, and I don't know if you were following it then, but there's a group on Facebook, a Bay City Rollers group, and it's I went in there with intention of just getting a podcast episode, but there's a lot of women in there. A lot of these ladies that used to scream and for the Bay City Rollers back in the day. I did a top 10 Bay City Rollers song episode with a lady from what's her name? Kathleen Stone was her name. We had a blast, and that's a great group. I actually had the guy, I can't remember his name. It's Ian is his name, I think. He's the current lead singer for the Bay City Rollers. I did that, but that was right around the time of COVID happened.
Right. I was going to go see them. They were touring right around then.
Yeah.
They canceled right after COVID hit. I was so disappointed.
Oh yeah, and I've tried my best to get an interview with Woody, and I just can't. It's been close, but it's fell through every time. I'm gonna keep on trying. But Mr. Beech, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the show and talk to us. It's been a blast. I'm sorry it took so long to get you up here, but like I said, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for supporting the show, because you always have a comment, especially on Twitter. You always have a comment for me up there. It's really appreciated.
Okay, thanks for having me again, and it's been great. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Yes, sir. You guys, make sure to check out plasmatics.com and check Mr. Beech out on his social media. And guys, that is Mr. Wes Beech from the Plasmatics on the Fly.